Hey, what's up? I wanted to have a talk today about RPE, or rating of perceived exertion. So this is a rating scale, usually between 1 and 10, although there was one that was between, I want to say it was like 6 and 19 or 20. Anyways, the second one was more of a reference to your heart rate. So like a 6 was a at rest, so it was referencing like a 60 beats per minute heart rate. And then the top of the line 20 would be like the most exertion that you could put out, and that's going to be reference to 200-ish heart rates. But the more popular used one is between 1 and 10, and there's a couple different ways that this scale is used, uh, both on the lifting side and the non-lifting side. So on the non-lifting side, it's very subjective, which is like rating of perceived exertion, so you're the one perceiving it. So it basically allows you to evaluate how intense your workout was. Um, on that side of things, it is good to then pair it with a heart rate monitor so that you can then have a better idea if your subjective views have like objective measures. So if you perceived a workout to be more intense and then your heart rate showed that it was higher during that workout than normal, then it shows that you're pretty in tune with how difficult you find your workouts. That's kind of how the non-lifting form goes. It's kind of just a how did you perceive it, how difficult it was, and that can change by a lot of factors, and that's why I like to pair it with the heart rate. So if you had like a bad night's rest, an easier workout is going to be higher on that RPE, but your heart rate might not reflect that, so then you just have more ways of telling if it was a one-off that it seemed really hard, or if there's other factors that you need to look into. On the lifting side of things, it more is in tune with the RIR, or reps in reserve, and RPE. Some people use that interchangeably, where it basically means how many more repetitions can you complete of the lift that you're doing. So on the RPE scale, it's the same as the RIR scale, where, well, it's kind of the inverse, actually. So on the RPE, if you were a 9 out of 10 RPE, that means you only had 1 rep left in the tank. 8, you had 2 left in the tank. And the opposite of that for the RIR, where if you went to RIR 1, that means you only had 1 rep left, and then so on. So they work inverse, but they communicate the same thing. On this, for the most part, if your RPE, which I'm just going to use RPE for the rest of this video, if it's below 7, so if you have 4 or more reps left in the tank, then it should basically be a warm-up set still. For example, if you're going to 10 reps and you finish it at your weight and you reflect on that being like, I could have easily gotten to 14, then that's your cue to add more weight so that you can get that RPE up before you start counting it towards your active sets or working sets, depending on which way you phrase it. So on that side of things, you kind of need to experience RPE 10, which means that you failed on the last rep. I don't recommend doing this on many compound lifts. Like the safest one to do that on is like if you have a spotter for bench press, or if you're doing like goblet box squats, because then you're failing is you're either not going to be able to hold onto the weight any longer, or you're not going to be able to stand up from the box. That way you have a fail safe at top and bottom, and it's relatively safe. But it's nice to, every once in a while on the lifts that you can, experience an RPE 10, to every so often, like once or twice a year, experience that, and that way it reaffirms it in your mind what that feels like, and it makes you better at judging when you do have those 1 or 2 reps left in reserve. Let's break down why this is important then. So why is it important to get that close to failure? For both strength and hypertrophy, you want to get close to that failure point to optimize your gains in those areas. For the hypertrophy side of things, you can be a little further away from failure if you go into the higher rep scheme. So the more reps that your set has, the lower your RPE can be while still making gains. So if you're doing 15 reps and you get to an RPE 7 or 8, you're still going to see pretty good hypertrophy gains, and that's going to continue as you go into those higher sets. On the other side of things, if you're in like the 8 to 10 and you're having 3 reps in reserve, it's likely that you're not going to see your like strength and hypertrophy gains be as big as they were on those others. So you really want to get to those 8s or 9s on those lower numbers. So that is kind of why you want to reflect and judge your RPE after every lift, and especially after every workout. Look back at the total workouts and each lift, being like, did I push myself hard enough? And this is going to help you avoid hitting plateaus and continue to see progress through the entire year. That's kind of what I wanted to hit on today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you in the next video.